Today we're going to a small city in New Mexico called Hobbs. Let me paint you a quick pic. It's a cold Friday afternoon. A car pulls up behind some shops. A young woman gets out, opens the back door, and grabs a black trash bag. She walks over to one of those big green open dumpsters, throws the trash bag in, gets back in her car, and then drives off. No big deal, right? Honestly, it just looks like someone throwing out their trash. But what was in that bag? It wasn't trash. It was a secret, a beautiful miracle, a newborn baby boy. But he was wrapped in a dirty towel with his umbilical cord still attached and placed into a trash bag and thrown in the dumpster. That sweet boy was just left there to die in the freezing cold. For 6 hours, he was just lying there, and what followed was the story of an 18-year-old girl in denial who panicked and made a choice so sickening it went viral all over the world. This is the case of Alexis Avila. If you're new to the channel, my name is Zara, and if you're as fascinated by the world of true crime as I am, then you are definitely in the right place. Here we dive into different cases, trying to piece together the puzzles, and if that sounds like your kind of thing, make sure you hit that subscribe button and join our awesome community. And while you're down there, if you could also smash that like button, it honestly is the best way to help the channel grow and for more people to hear about these important stories. And don't forget to share. I appreciate it so much. To continue the convo and get a little more personal, consider becoming a channel member. Your support helps sustain the channel and you get instant access to our private Discord server. This is where we truly connect, discussing cases, brainstorming theories, and just chatting with a community of like-minded people. So just click the join button below the video if you're interested. All right, grab your tea, your coffee, or your soda, get your water, get comfy because we're about to unpack the bizarre and honestly traumatic case of Alexis Avila. So let's get into it. So on January 7th, 2022, this town of Hobbs was suddenly all over the news for the worst possible reason. A newborn baby was found in a dumpster in the freezing cold. I mean, the story just blew up everywhere. And to be completely real here, this wasn't the first time this type of incident had appeared on the news, especially in New Mexico. From 2021 to 2023, at least 4 babies were abandoned illegally, including the famous case of Alexis Treviso, the teen who gave birth in a hospital bathroom and then dumped the baby in the bin. That case was really huge as well. And sadly, in that case, that baby died. So these stories, personally for me, are very hard to cover and very hard to even read about, but they are so important to talk about. These cases bring up so many tough questions, like how could a mother do that? What would make someone so desperate? And with things like safe haven laws out there, why was a dumpster the only option Alexis saw? So let's talk about Alexis. So who is this chick? At the time, Alexis Nicole Avila was 18 years old. She was born on December 22nd, 2003. And although she had just turned 18 years old, she was still a kid, really. She was attending Hobbs High School in her final year, living at home with her mom, Martha, and her dad, Domingo, doing homework, partying with friends, the usual. From the outside, her life looked totally normal. No crazy history, no major trouble with the police, and a good family life. Her family had gatherings multiple times a week. Alexis had a brother who lived with his own family, I believe. He had 4 kids, and then she also had a sister who had 3 kids. So Alexis and her parents would have dinner over at her brother's house often, and they would come over to Alexis's house often. And the family just seemed close with no major issues. Nothing that would make you think she could do something like this. Her mom even said later in court that she thought Alexis was in a really good headspace and that this was completely out of character for her. But Alexis was hiding this huge secret. She was pregnant. Alexis had been dating a guy named Steven for about a year from the time she was around 16, 17 years old, but they broke up in August 2021, but still remained friends or at least on talking terms. And the craziest part, according to her, is that she didn't even know until the day before she gave birth that she was even pregnant. So I know that sounds insane, but it's actually a real thing called a cryptic pregnancy. if that's what she had. A woman can literally not know she's pregnant until she's in labor. They don't have any symptoms like morning sickness. They don't really show in the belly. And this was really true for me because if my son didn't kick me multiple times a day, I wouldn't have known I was pregnant for months because I didn't start showing until I was over 6 months pregnant. And certain symptoms like back pain or even aches in your pelvic region, the muscles, if you don't suspect you're pregnant or take a test, some women are just like, oh, it's just back pain or I pulled a muscle. So it does happen. And there are women who end up giving birth to completely healthy babies, not even knowing they were pregnant. But most of them don't dump the baby in the trash. Alexis and Stephen were obviously sexually active, even taking a pregnancy test back in April 2021. And then allegedly, she took 2 more tests in August 2021, around the time they broke up. However, Alexis brushed these tests off, claiming it was only part of a TikTok trend, even though out of 2 of the tests, one of them came up positive. Stephen also had allegedly told friends about this positive pregnancy test. Friends began questioning Alexis, sending her texts, asking her if she was pregnant, but Alexis, because she didn't know she was pregnant, denied these accusations and carried on with life as a high school senior. Even though her body was growing a life she either refused to acknowledge or really didn't know existed. But in January 2022, this denial turned into full-blown reality. Alexis had been dealing with stomach pains and constipation for a few days, so on January 4th, 2022, she went to the doctor at a hospital with her mother, Martha. Alexis was having these really sharp, twisting pains in her back, her lower back specifically, and Alexis had been in a car accident in May 2021 and had these pains in her lower back ever since. So she claimed she was familiar with these pains, and from x-rays and MRIs after the accident, doctors told her she had a crack in her spinal bones on her L4 and L5. Alexis also worked at a clothing company where she would often lift heavy boxes, so the doctor at the time just sent her home with medication for the pain in her back. Alexis went home and took these meds. The medication didn't really help with her pain, again, something she said she was used to. Not a lot of meds worked on her back pain. So fast forward a couple days to January 6th, 2022. Alexis goes back to see another doctor, this time alone. She explained her back pain to the doctor and she was given a urine test. The doctor came back into the room, put her hand on Alexis's knee, and told her she was pregnant and to stop taking the medication for the back pain. Alexis claimed that in this moment, she completely blacked out. She claimed she went to work after this doctor's appointment, finished at about 7 p.m., and then went to her brother's house for dinner for a family gathering. She sat with her family that night with this secret weighing on her, but she didn't tell anyone that she was pregnant. The very next day, Friday, January 7th, 2022, she's at home and her stomach pains get worse, so she stayed in bed for most of the day while her parents were at work. She was home alone. She thought it was just severe constipation, so she tried going to the bathroom a couple times. It didn't work, so she took some pills that her dad gave her instead. Her dad comes home at some point and he goes to the bathroom. He takes his medication. I believe he took some insulin and then he leaves once again. At this time, Alexis gets up from her bed and goes to the bathroom. Here, all by herself in her family's bathroom, Alexis gives birth to a baby boy. She doesn't remember if she gave birth on the toilet or if she gave birth on the floor. She claims she was just in complete shock. Alexis claimed that she does not remember what happened from this point until she went to the police station later that night. She said she didn't know what to do or who to call, and in this state of what her defense would call a psychological crisis, she cut the umbilical cord, wrapped the newborn in a dirty towel, and placed him inside a plastic trash bag. She then put that bag inside another trash bag filled with trash, secured it with a hair tie, and carried her son out to her white car. She didn't clean him or anything. She just put him in a bag. She drove around for a while, this sweet, poor, tiny, fragile little baby hidden in the back seat in a trash bag. At around 2 p.m., she pulled up to a row of dumpsters behind the Broadmoor shopping center. CCTV cameras mounted on the nearby Rig Outfitters and home store captured what happened next. The footage, which would soon go viral, shows Alexis getting out of the driver's side, opening the back door, and pulling out a black trash bag. She walks a few steps and just flings it into the green dumpster before getting back in her car and then just driving away. She left her newborn son to die in the freezing January cold. The way she just tosses the bag that not only held her newborn baby, it was her baby, her first child. The way she throws it, it just blows my mind. Despite the panic, the shock that she was in, even a 10-year-old kid or even my 6-year-old son would know that throwing a baby like that, not only into the dumpster, which could have had shards of broken glass, which could have had sharp metal objects, just anything, just flinging a fragile little being like that is not only not okay, but absolutely not normal for a human being with a beating heart to do. That little baby boy was in that dumpster for almost 6 hours. He could have frozen to death in that dumpster, which hovered at around 30 degrees Fahrenheit or -1 degrees Celsius. Freezing. He could have suffocated in those trash bags. His survival is a straight up miracle, and it's all thanks to some unlikely heroes. That miracle arrived in the form of 3 people: Michael Green, Hector Jasso, and April Nuttall. At around 7:45 p.m. that night, Michael, Hector, and April were dumpster diving, just looking for anything of value they could find. As they were digging around, they heard a little noise. At first, they thought it was like a kitten or a puppy, so they looked around, they saw this black trash bag. So they pulled it out, and it was heavy, and the sound got louder. Inside this bag, which lay amongst the garbage, was a newborn baby, wrapped in a bloody towel with its umbilical cord still attached. The 911 call is just heartbreaking to listen to. You can hear this guy just yelling, we found a baby in the goddamn trash. Then a woman gets on and her voice is shaking and she's trying to explain to the 911 dispatch that the baby is freezing cold, very, very weak, and still has his umbilical cord attached.
Yes, we just found a baby in the trash. We had just found an infant child.
Is it breathing?
In the goddamn trash. Yes, ma'am.
Hello?
Hello, yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me about the baby?
He's still got his umbilical cord, and he's freezing cold, and he's very, he's drained, he's very, very, very weak.
The baby was barely crying, just whimpering, wasn't fed ever, with probably no energy to even cry out for help. They did everything right. They immediately took him out, wrapped him in their own jackets to keep him warm, and just held him until help got there. They 100% saved that baby's life. Paramedics rushed to the scene, and EMS specialist Caleb Scherer found the newborn to be cold with low oxygen levels, hypothermic. His skin was blue, and when they rushed the baby to the hospital, they couldn't even register his body temperature because it was so low. He was alive, but barely, and he fought for his life. The newborn was stabilized eventually and transferred to a neonatal unit at Covenant Children's Hospital in Lubbock, Texas for specialized care. It was later determined that he was suffering from hypothermia, anemia from blood loss through the unclamped umbilical cord, and he had injuries to his vital organs. One child abuse expert, Dr. Shalon Neanow, stated that if the group hadn't found him, the baby inevitably would have died. The whole world was just in shock. How did this happen, and who would do this to their own child? Amazingly, the police figured out who did it so fast, and it was all because of that security camera footage. The owner of the business with the cameras, Rig Outfitters, was Joe, and he gave the footage to the police right away. He said that when he realized what was on it, he just broke down crying. The video was so clear that the cops could see the car's make and model and even part of the license plate. And that was all they needed. They traced the car and it led them straight to Alexis Avila's house. When the police showed up and talked to Alexis's parents, Martha and Domingo, they confirmed, yeah, it's her car. That she was inside the home sleeping as she had not been feeling well the last couple of days and hadn't gone to school or work. The cops told them what was going on, and her parents honestly were pretty cooperative with the police. They told the police that Alexis would go down to the police station to talk and that Martha would drive her herself. With that video as proof, Alexis didn't have much of a choice. She agreed to talk to the detectives without a lawyer present, and her car was then seized. Alexis reportedly confessed to the whole thing. She said she didn't know she was pregnant until January 6th and that she panicked and didn't know what to do after she gave birth unexpectedly on January 7th. She admitted putting the newborn baby into a trash bag, and throwing him into the dumpster. When the detective asked her, "What did you think was going to happen to the baby after you just left him there?" she was silent and didn't have anything to say, which in the detective's mind kind of proved that she knew that baby was going to die there. The next day, she was arrested and charged with attempted first-degree murder and felony child abuse. But then something happened that made a lot of people really angry. Less than 2 hours after she was arrested, Alexis was released on a $10,000 bond. People were pointing out that her baby spent way more time in that dumpster alone than she spent in jail. It caused a huge uproar, and a judge eventually put her on house arrest with an ankle monitor until her trial began. Martha, her mom, was also interviewed at the station that same day, but she alleged that she had no idea that her daughter was pregnant. She knew that she had been in a relationship with Stephen for over a year, but she claimed that Stephen was no longer allowed in their home after he allegedly beat Alexis sometime in June 2021. She claimed that her daughter did not act differently during the last few days. She had just been inside her room dealing with her stomach and back pains and was on her phone the entire time. So the trial started in April 2023, more than a year later. The prosecutors basically just had to show the video and her confession, which they played multiple times in court for the jury, and they said her actions were deliberate. Throwing a baby in a dumpster in the winter isn't a mistake, it's attempted murder. They destroyed Alexis's claim of blacking out. They pointed out her detailed confession in the police interview where she remembered specifics down to the hair ties she used to close the trash bag. They presented evidence that she knew about the pregnancy long before January 6th, with the positive pregnancy test in either April or August of 2021. They even called the baby's father, Stephen, to testify as a rebuttal witness. He testified that he knew she was pregnant back in April 2021 when she showed him a positive test. The prosecution also presented text messages from December 2021 where Alexis discussed with a friend that people around her were talking about her being pregnant. The medical evidence was also very, very upsetting. A bunch of doctors and specialists took the stand to describe the baby's critical condition when he got to the hospital. They spoke of the hypothermia, the anemia, and the high risk of infection and sepsis on that poor baby. The jury heard that the baby had tested positive for opiates, which the defense claimed was due to that codeine prescription Alexis got from the doctor on January 4th, 2022 for the back pain. The prosecution's position was clear. This was not a panic-induced mistake. It was a deliberate attempt to end a life, to conceal a mistake that Alexis never wanted to deal with. And I mean, it kind of rang true because if Stephen, the father, knows she's pregnant, did they not have discussions about what they were going to do with the pregnancy, how they were going to move forward? Like, it seemed that she was just like, pregnancy? What pregnancy? I don't know what you're talking about. Her defense team, led by Ibukan Adepoju, sorry if I butchered it, did not argue the facts of what she did. They couldn't. It was all on video, but they argued it was about her mental state. They said she wasn't a monster. She was a frightened young woman who was in the middle of a severe mental health crisis. They had Dr. Susan Cave, a clinical and forensic psychologist who evaluated Alexis and said she had undiagnosed bipolar 1 disorder. And Dr. Susan believed that Alexis had been dealing with this disorder since she was a young teen. She also said that hormonal changes of a pregnancy could amplify and even exacerbate the underlying mood disorder that she had, leading to a dissociative state where Alexis was detached from reality and, from her own actions. So they argue that the shock of suddenly just randomly giving birth made her basically detach from reality. Her mom, Martha, even got up and testified that this wasn't the real Alexis and that she wasn't in her right mind. Alexis even testified herself, and her testimony was kind of annoying. She seemed arrogant to me. I could just be taking it wrong, but she seemed, just a bit arrogant. She said when the doctor told her that she was pregnant, she just blacked out and she spoke really softly, often saying, I don't remember, or I don't recall, or whatever happened on the video. That's how I know, what happened that day. She described the feeling of blacking out as being outside her own body, like she was a ghost. She showed remorse, saying that when she heard testimony about her son's condition and the medical details, it hurt her and that he's still mine. The whole defense was that she was, a young, mentally sick girl who was just completely overwhelmed and not responsible for what she did. But the jury and you and I didn't buy it. After listening to everything for 3 days, they came back with a verdict in less than 3 hours. They found her guilty of both attempted first-degree murder and child abuse, resulting in bodily harm. Alexis broke down in tears as the verdict was read. Stephen, the baby's father, who now has custody of baby Saul, as he is known by the public, spoke about his son's traumatic start to life and said he will never, ever forgive Alexis for what she did. Martha and Domingo, her parents, pleaded with the judge for mercy, saying their daughter was really, truly not in her right mind. On May 1st, 2023, the judge gave her sentence. He told her straight up that if those 3 angels hadn't found her baby boy, he'd be sentencing her for an actual murder. He said her actions were heinous and unforgivable, especially as a mother. He gave her 18 years in prison, but because of her age and her mental health issues, he suspended 2 of those years. So she has to serve 16 years in total, and she'll possibly be less than 36 years old when and if she is released. Finally, Alexis addressed the court and she said she was sorry and regretted her actions. And she went on to say, I regret that his first hours of life were traumatic, and I regret that he will always have this in the back of his head and will think I do not love him because that's what he'll read and hear. But that's not true at all. I do love him. I truly do. So what happened to sweet baby Saul? He survived. It's really a miracle, and it's the one bright spot in this whole sad story. This little boy Saul is now safe and loved by his father and his family. It's truly so heartbreaking whenever we hear about a newborn being abandoned. This is such a tough thing for me, especially to hear, and these are desperate situations, but it's so important for people to know that there are safe, legal, and compassionate alternatives. No one ever has to resort to abandoning a baby out of fear and out of panic. Every single state in the US has what's called a safe haven law. Sometimes it's also known as a baby Moses law. And these laws were created for exactly this kind of situation. They allow a parent to bring their unharmed newborn to a designated safe place like a hospital, a fire station that's staffed, or a police station that's staffed, and hand the baby over with no questions asked. This process can be anonymous, and the parent won't face any criminal charges for abandoning that baby. The most important thing is making sure that that baby is safe and cared for. And because of what happened to baby Saul, lawmakers in New Mexico actually worked to make this program better. They funded baby boxes, which are like safe, temperature-controlled, essentially incubators where a parent can drop a baby off, surrender a baby completely anonymously. It was a direct result of this tragedy, trying to make sure that it never happens again. But while safe haven laws are great, we also have to talk about how to prevent these things from happening in the first place at all. And this starts with education. We need to make sure that all young men and women have access to clear, medically accurate sex education. This isn't just about telling kids not to have sex, don't have sex, stay abstinent. It's not about that. It's about giving them real information about their bodies, about contraception, about STIs, and what healthy relationships look like. And this is actually proven to reduce teen pregnancy rates. I mean, it's simple education. We just need to teach them. And accidents do happen. So if they do get pregnant and feel like they can't deal, they need to know that they aren't alone and that there are support systems ready to help them understand, their options without any judgment. Ultimately, no one should ever feel so trapped that abandoning an innocent baby seems like the only way out. There are better choices available, and it's on all of us, especially as parents, to make sure that this message of hope and help and education reaches everyone, especially the youth. I sound like such a mom and such a dork, but it's just so sad when you hear about these freaking cases, and it's like, I don't think these people are bad. I don't think that Alexis was like, screw this baby. It's just that they don't know what to do and they panic and they don't really feel like acknowledging that baby will ever have a good outcome. It's like they just need to pretend it never happened. And I don't know how people who actually do abandon babies, like live babies, and they abandon them, I don't know how you actually move on and live every day following that, because it's just always going to be on your mind. So it's not the best option out there ever. The Alexis Avila case and cases like it are just so effed up. I'm so happy baby Saul survived, and I hope with no long-term medical issues. You know, you have this young woman who made a terrible, terrible choice, and you have this innocent baby who almost died. And his start to life was horrific. It's so easy to just look at her and call her a monster, and what she did was a monstrous act, but you also have to think about the other side, the side that the court saw, that she was this young kid with mental health problems, and she made a horrible mistake, but again, it could have been prevented so easily. And I feel like her brother and sister already had so many kids. I don't feel like it would have been this tragedy for Alexis to have a baby. I don't feel like her parents, I mean, I don't know her parents, right? But just theoretically, I don't feel like her parents would be super angry. They've already had a bunch of grandkids. And even if Alexis didn't want to keep the baby, I feel like they probably would have been like, no, keep the baby. But, you know, she could have given it to somebody who truly wanted a baby. There are so many people out there who want kids. And it just shows there's this huge problem. How do we help young moms who are scared and alone? How do we make sure that they know that there are safe options out there? Again, I probably sound like a mom now, but again, it comes down to education, right? Like, teach your daughters that you shouldn't just have sex to make someone else happy, and teach them that pregnancy is really the outcome and STIs are the outcome of having sex. I don't know. There are no easy answers. Alexis is being held accountable. She's going to be in prison for a long time, but the damage from this is permanent for her, for her family, and especially for her son, who will grow up knowing his unbelievable story of how his life began. Which in a way, I hope he never knows what his mom did. But in this day and age with social media and Google, you know, how do you protect that sweet boy? What do you guys think? Was 16 years a fair sentence? Or should her mental health have been a bigger factor? Should she have just received help and not gone to jail at all? So let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. This was a really tough one, and I appreciate you sticking with me till the end. If you found this case and topic important, please give this video a big thumbs up. And don't forget to subscribe. Just hit that button and hit that notification bell so you don't miss out on the next one. Most importantly, this case is a huge reminder that there are safe options for parents in crisis. So if you or anyone you know is struggling, please look up these safe haven laws in your area, and I'll put some info in the description box down below. Thanks so much for watching, everyone. Until next time, look out for each other. Besitos. Bye.